Jasper McAllister hadn't cried in 6 years. Not when he buried his wife. Not when he buried his daughter 2 days later. Not once in 2,000 lonely nights on that Montana ranch. But when the little girl with the bleeding feet looked up at him and whispered, "Mr. Mama can't walk no more," something cracked inside him that he thought had died long ago. This is a story about second chances, about found family, about a man who thought he had nothing left to give and a woman who had nowhere left to go. If you want to see how their journey ends, subscribe to our channel and follow along. Drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. Now let's begin. The hammer came down wrong. Jasper McAllister swore under his breath, pulled the bent nail from the fence post, tossed it into the snow. His fingers were numb. Didn't matter. 6 miles of fence line needed mending before the real cold hit, and he was behind by 2 weeks. Sergeant lifted his head from his paws, ears pricking forward. "What is it, boy?" The old dog didn't bark, just stared at the road. Jasper turned. 3 shapes on the horizon. Moving slow. Too slow. He set down the hammer. Watched them approach. 12 miles from town, no neighbors for 8 miles in any direction, strangers didn't come this way. Road to Willow Creek, cut south, not through his land. The shapes became clearer. A woman. A child. Something bundled in the woman's arms. They stopped at his fence line, 30 feet away. The woman swayed, caught herself, swayed again. The child stepped forward. A girl, maybe 8 years old. Dress torn in 3 places. Dark hair matted with what looked like dried blood near her temple. Her feet were wrapped in rags, and those rags were stained red. She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. "Mister," she said, "Mama can't walk no more." Jasper's throat closed. The woman's knees buckled. She went down hard, twisting to protect the bundle in her arms. A baby's cry split the cold air. Jasper was over the fence before he knew he was moving. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" The woman's eyes fluttered open. Green shot through with exhaustion and something else. Fear, deep and old. "Don't." She tried to push him away. "Don't touch my children." "I'm trying to help." That's what the last town said. Jasper sat back on his heels. Looked at her. Really looked. Bruises on her wrists. A cut on her cheekbone half healed. Her boots were falling apart, soles worn through to nothing. "How far you walked?" She didn't answer. The girl did. "Since Rollins, 14 days. Jasper did the math. 200 miles, through November, with a baby and a child. "Why?" The woman struggled to sit up. Her voice came out raw, cracked from cold and thirst. "Because everywhere else said no." Jasper looked at the girl's bleeding feet. Looked at the baby still crying, face red with cold. Looked at the woman who'd walked 200 miles through winter for her children. He stood up, extended his hand. "Can you stand?" She stared at his hand like it was a trap. "Ma'am, I ain't gonna hurt you, but you stay out here another hour, you'll freeze, all 3 of you. We just need the barn, just for tonight. We'll be gone by morning. We'll talk about tomorrow when it comes. Right now you need to get warm." She took his hand. Jasper half carried her across the yard, the girl following with the baby in her arms. The child hadn't made a sound except that first question. No crying, no complaining about her bleeding feet. Just walking steady and silent, like someone who'd learned young that tears didn't help. He pushed open the barn door, lit the lantern by the entrance. "There's hay in the back, clean. I'll bring blankets, water, food. We can pay." The woman's voice shook with something like pride. "I can work, cook, clean, mend. Whatever you need. We'll talk about that tomorrow too. I need to know what this costs." Her eyes met his fierce despite the exhaustion. "Nothing's free. I learned that the hard way." Jasper paused at the door. "Lady, I don't know what kind of men you've been dealing with. But on my land, help don't come with conditions. You're cold, you're hurt, your children are suffering. That's enough reason. He left before she could argue. In the house, he moved through the kitchen like a man underwater. Bread, jerky, milk from the cold box, 2 wool blankets from the chest by the fire, an old quilt his mother had made, the one he couldn't bring himself to use anymore. He stopped. Margaret's quilt. She'd wrapped their daughter in it for those 2 days before Jasper closed his eyes, drew a breath. Then he folded the quilt over his arm and walked back to the barn. The woman had collapsed in the hay, the baby in the crook of her arm. The girl sat beside them, hand on her mother's shoulder, watching Jasper with those 2 old eyes. He set down the basket, spread the blankets over the woman, wrapped the quilt around the girl's shoulders. "Thank you." The girl's voice was small but steady. "Most folks, they just chase us off." "That's so. Mama says it's 'cause of what happened to Papa. They think she's bad luck. Or worse." "What happened to your papa?" The girl went quiet, looked at her mother, then back at Jasper. "He died. Trying to do the right thing." Jasper felt something shift in his chest. He'd heard that tone before, in his own voice 6 years ago. "I'm sorry. People say that a lot, don't usually mean it." "I mean it." The girl studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded once like she'd made a decision. "I'm Emmeline, but Mama calls me Emmy. That's Sammy." She pointed at the baby. "And that's Mama. Her name's Clara." "Jasper McAllister." "You live here alone, Mr. Jasper?" "I do." "Why?" The question hit him like a fist to the chest. He stood suddenly, needing distance. "Get some rest, Emmeline. I'll check on you in the morning." He was at the door when her voice stopped him. "Mr. Jasper." He turned. "Mama's not bad. The things they say about Papa, they're not true. He was a hero. He was—" Her voice cracked for the first time. "He was the best Papa in the whole world." Jasper's hand tightened on the doorframe. "Get some sleep, child." He walked back to the house. Sergeant was waiting on the porch, tail thumping once. Inside, Jasper sat at the kitchen table in the dark. He could see the barn from the window, the faint glow of the lantern he'd left burning. 3 strangers in his barn. A woman with secrets in her eyes. A child with bleeding feet and a heart too brave for her years. A baby who might not survive the winter. He should send them on in the morning. Point them toward the Zex town. Give them food for the road. Wish them well. Getting involved meant questions. Meant complications, meant the kind of pain he'd sworn he was done with. He looked at the mantel, at the small portrait of Margaret, the empty space beside it where their daughter's portrait should have been. "Nothing's free," the woman had said. "I need to know what this costs." Jasper understood that. He'd been paying his own debt for 6 years. He didn't sleep. At first light, he walked to the barn. Found Emmy already awake, feeding his chickens like she'd done it her whole life. The girl had found the grain bucket, scattered it carefully, counting each hen. 7, 8, 9. "You got 9 chickens, Mr. Jasper." "Had 10. Lost one to a fox last month." "I can fix that." "Fix what?" "The coop. There's a hole in the back corner. That's how the fox got in." She pointed. "See, I can patch it. I know how. Papa taught me." Jasper looked at the hole. He'd been meaning to fix it for weeks. Hadn't found the reason to bother. "Your mama awake." She tried to get up. I made her stay down. Emmy's voice took on a fierce edge. "Her feet are real bad, Mr. Jasper. She didn't let me see 'em the whole way here, but last night I looked while she was sleeping. They're bleeding. A lot." Jasper's jaw tightened. "I'll be back." He returned to the house, gathered clean rags, the bottle of whiskey he kept for emergencies, the salve he used on the horses. When he came back to the barn, Clara was awake, trying to stand. "Stay down." "I'm fine." "You walked 200 miles on feet that look like raw meat. You ain't fine." She stared at him, defiance warring with exhaustion. I've been taking care of myself for 8 months. I don't need. Mama. Emmy's voice was quiet but firm. Let him help. Please. Something passed between mother and daughter. Some wordless conversation forged by months of hardship. Clara sat back down, extended her feet. Jasper knelt, unwrapped the rags carefully. What he saw made his stomach turn. Blisters on top of blisters. Raw skin. Infection starting in 2 places. These weren't feet, they were a testament to desperation. You walked on these for 2 weeks. Had to. Could have stopped. Found a doctor. With what money? Clara's voice was bitter. And doctors. She stopped. Something dark crossed her face. Doctors don't help people like us. Jasper poured whiskey over the wounds. Clara gasped but didn't cry out. Emmy held her hand, face pale but steady. He worked in silence. Cleaned each wound, applied salve, wrapped fresh bandages. You can't walk for at least 2 weeks, maybe more. We can't stay here 2 weeks. You ain't got a choice. Clara's eyes flashed. There's always a choice. Yeah, and what's yours? Walk back out there and die in the snow. Leave your children orphans. Jasper kept his voice flat. You made it this far. Don't throw it away because you're too proud to accept help. Silence. Emmy spoke up. Mama. He's right. Sammy's been coughing. And She looked at her feet. I don't think I can walk much more either. Clara's face crumpled. For just a moment the walls came down, and Jasper saw the woman beneath, exhausted, terrified, holding herself together through sheer will. 2 weeks, she whispered. And we'll work for our keep, every day. We'll see about that. That evening, Jasper sat on the porch while Emmy played with Sargent in the yard. The girl had energy, now fed and warm, and the dog seemed to remember what joy felt like. Clara appeared in the barn doorway, Sammy in her arms. She'd ignored his orders and walked the 20 feet on her bandaged feet. Jasper didn't comment. He was learning that this woman did what she wanted. May I sit? He gestured to the empty chair. She lowered herself slowly, Sammy against her chest. The baby was quiet now, brown eyes taking in everything. They sat in silence for a while, watching Emmy throw a stick for Sargent. Whitmore. Jasper turned. My name. Clara Whitmore. You never asked. Didn't figure it was my business. It's not, but you should know who you're harboring. She paused. In case there's trouble. What kind of trouble? Clara's jaw tightened. My husband was Henry Whitmore, deputy sheriff of Willow Creek. Jasper went still. He was killed 8 months ago, during a bank robbery. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. The official story is that he was a coward, that he hid while other people died, that he got himself shot running away. And the real story, Clara looked at him. The real story is that he discovered the bank was being robbed by the town's own marshal, that he tried to stop it, that he was murdered for knowing too much. Jasper felt cold. That had nothing to do with the weather. You got proof. I have his journal, his notes, everything he found out before they killed him. She touched her dress, the bodice where something small was hidden. I've been carrying it for 8 months, waiting, running. Running from who? Marshal Douglas Crane, the man who murdered my husband, the man who runs Willow Creek. She laughed hollow and broken. The man who told every town between here and there that I'm a thief, a whore, a murderer's widow. Take your pick. He's got a story for every audience. Jasper stared at the darkening sky. Why are you telling me this? Because tomorrow or next week someone from town will ride out here. They'll tell you I'm dangerous, that I'll bring trouble to your door. She met his eyes. And they'll be right. I am trouble. I do bring danger, but I'm not a liar, and I'm not what they say I am. Her voice broke. I just want my children to be safe. That's all I've ever wanted. Emmy ran up the porch steps breathless. Mama Sargent caught the stick. He's real smart. Clara's face transformed. The exhaustion was still there, but something like light came into her eyes. That's wonderful, baby girl. Jasper watched them, mother and daughter, the fierce love between them forged by fire. He thought of Margaret, of the daughter he'd never gotten to know. Mr. Jasper. Emmy stood in front of him. Can we stay? Please, I promise I'll fix the chicken coop, and I'll help with the horses, and I'll be real quiet, and not bother you none. Jasper looked at Clara. She was holding her breath. He stood up. Storm's coming in a few days. Barn's not fit for a baby in that kind of cold. He walked toward the house, paused at the door. There's a spare room, small but warm. You'll take it. Mr. McAllister, Jasper, and this ain't a discussion. He went inside. Behind him he heard Emmy's whoop of joy, heard Clara's quiet, thank you, carried on the wind. And somewhere deep in his chest, something that had been frozen for 6 years began to crack. 3 days passed. Jasper learned that Clara couldn't sit still despite her feet. She cooked meals that filled the house with warmth. She mended his shirts before he asked. She organized his kitchen with quiet efficiency. He learned that Emmy talked to animals like they could understand her, that she drew pictures on any paper she could find, that she'd taught herself to braid rope by watching her father. He learned that Sammy had his mother's eyes and a laugh that could stop a man's heart. And he learned that he'd forgotten what it felt like to have voices in this house. Footsteps. Life. On the 4th morning, Ezra Polk rode up from town. Jasper met him at the fence. The blacksmith was frowning unusual for a man who found humor in everything. You got company. Word travels fast. This is Willow Creek. Word's all we got. Ezra dismounted. There's talk, Jasper. Marshal Crane's been asking about a woman and 2 children. Says she's wanted for theft, maybe worse. Jasper's jaw tightened. That's so. Also says the husband was dirty. Deputy on the take. Ezra's eyes were careful. Crane's offering a reward. $50 for information. That's a lot of money. It is. Makes people interested. Jasper said nothing. Ezra sighed. I ain't asking questions. What you do on your land is your business. But you should know Crane's coming. Tomorrow or the next day. He's been working his way through every ranch between here and the territorial line. Let him come. Jasper. I said, let him come. Ezra looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded. You know where to find me if you need me. He rode away. Jasper stood at the fence, staring at the road. In the house behind him, he could hear Emmy's laughter. Clara's voice singing something soft to the baby. 200 miles Clara had walked. Through snow and cold and the hatred of strangers. Because a man with power had decided to destroy her. Jasper knew about men like that. He'd begged one to save his wife's life. The doctor in Willow Creek had been drinking that night, had slammed the door in Jasper's face, had told him that riding through a blizzard wasn't worth the trouble. Margaret had died in his arms. Their daughter 2 days later. And that doctor still walked free, still practiced, still drank. Jasper had never gone back to town after the funeral, never sought justice, never demanded answers. He'd buried his rage along with his family and called it peace. But it wasn't peace. It was surrender. He looked at the house, at the window where Emmy's face appeared waving. Maybe it was time to stop surrendering. That night, after the children were asleep, Clara found him on the porch. She moved differently now, still limping, but stronger. Ezra Polk told you about Crane. Jasper nodded. And you're still letting us stay. I am. Clara sat beside him. The moon was full, painting the snow blue and silver. Why? Jasper was quiet for a long time. 6 years ago I had a wife, Margaret, and for 3 hours I had a daughter, Grace. His voice was steady, but it cost him. There was a storm. Labor came early. I rode to town for the doctor. Man was drunk. Wouldn't come. Clara didn't speak, just listened. Margaret died in my arms in that barn. Baby lived 2 days. I buried them both on the hill behind the house. Jasper. I've been asking myself ever since, what if someone had helped? What if one person had done the right thing? Would they still be alive? He turned to look at her. I can't change what happened to Margaret, but I can change what happens to you. Clara's eyes were wet, but she didn't let the tears fall. You don't owe us anything. This ain't about debt. Jasper looked at the 2 crosses on the hill. It's about who I want to be. What kind of man? Silence stretched between them. Comfortable. Full. My husband, Clara said finally, wrote in his journal about this place. A ranch 12 miles from town, owned by a man who'd lost everything. He said if anything happened to him, I should come here, that this man would help. Jasper's blood went cold. Henry knew about me. He knew about everyone. It was his job. Clara reached into her bodice, pulled out a small leather journal. He wrote Jasper McAllister, lost his wife and daughter 6 years ago. Honest man, good man, the kind who'd die for what's right. She held the journal out to him. Jasper took it, opened to the marked page, read Henry's handwriting, neat and careful. If I die, Clara goes to McAllister. He won't want to help. He'll try to send her away. But underneath that grief, there's steel. He just needs a reason to remember. Jasper closed the journal. Your husband was wrong about one thing. Clara looked at him. I don't need a reason to remember. He handed the journal back. I never forgot. I just stopped trying. Clara's hand touched his. Brief but warm. Then maybe it's time to start again. On the hill, the 2 crosses stood silent. And if the wind sounded like a woman's voice whispering, "Thank you," Jasper chose not to question it. Tomorrow, Marshal Crane would come. But tonight, for the first time in 6 years, Jasper McAllister wasn't alone. Marshal Douglas Crane arrived at noon the next day. Jasper saw the dust cloud first. 3 riders coming fast from the south. He set down the axe he'd been using to split firewood and walked toward the house. Clara appeared in the doorway, face pale. It's him. Get inside. Take the children to the back room. Don't come out no matter what you hear. Jasper. Go, now. She went. Jasper reached the porch just as the riders pulled up at his fence. The man in front was tall, silver-haired, wearing a marshal's star that caught the winter sun. His face was the kind that smiled easy and meant nothing. Mr. McAllister? Crane's voice was smooth as river water. Been meaning to pay you a visit. That's so. Mind if we come in cold out here? I mind. Crane's smile flickered. The 2 men behind him shifted in their saddles. Hands moved toward holsters. Now that's not very neighborly. I ain't your neighbor. Crane dismounted, walked to the fence, close enough to touch. His eyes swept the property, the house, the barn, the smoke rising from the chimney. Heard you got company these days. Jasper said nothing. Woman and 2 children. Came through about a week ago. Crane pulled a folded paper from his coat. This woman's wanted for theft, possibly murder. Her husband was a dirty lawman who got what was coming to him. That what the paper says? That's what the truth says. Jasper looked at the wanted poster. Clara's face drawn rough but recognizable. Reward, $100. Dead or alive. $100, Crane continued. That's a lot of money for a man living alone on a failing ranch. Ranch ain't failing. Winter's long. Feed's expensive. Things happen. Crane's voice dropped friendly and threatening at once. I'm just saying a smart man knows when to cut his losses. Turn over the woman and children. Collect your reward. Nobody has to get hurt. Jasper folded the poster, tucked it in his pocket. Appreciate the offer. And you can ride back the way you came. Crane's jaw tightened. The smile stayed, but his eyes went cold. You don't want to make an enemy of me, McAllister. Don't want to make a friend of you either. One of Crane's men laughed. Crane silenced him with a look. You've got 3 days. After that, I come back with deputies, legal authority, warrants. He mounted his horse. And I won't be asking politely. They rode away, leaving churned snow and silence behind. Jasper stood on the porch until they disappeared over the ridge. Then he went inside. Clara was in the kitchen, Sammy in her arms. Emmy pressed against her side. All 3 faces turned to him. They're gone. Clara's breath came out shaky. For now. For now. Emmy looked up at him. That man. He's the one who killed Papa. Jasper knelt in front of her. You saw him before. I saw him that night, the night Papa died. Emmy's voice was steady, but her hands shook. He came to our house after. Told Mama to keep quiet or we'd end up like Papa. I was supposed to be asleep, but I wasn't. Jasper looked at Clara. She nodded, eyes dark with old pain. She saw everything. That's why we had to run. Because she's a witness. Because she's the only witness. Everyone else who knew is dead. Jasper stood, walked to the window, stared at the road where Crane had disappeared. 3 days. We should leave tonight, before he comes back. And go where you can barely walk. Emmy's feet are still healing. Sammy's got a cough that won't quit. He turned to face her. You run, now you die in the snow. That's not a maybe. That's a certainty. And if we stay, then we fight. Clara stared at him. Fight against a marshal against the law. He ain't the law. He's a murderer wearing a badge. There's a difference. The world doesn't see it that way. Then we make them see. Silence. Emmy spoke up. I can tell them. I can tell everyone what I saw. No. Clara's voice was sharp. Absolutely not. But Mama, I said no. You're 8 years old. You're not testifying against a killer. Papa would want me to tell the truth. The words hit Clara like a physical blow. She turned away, shoulders shaking. Jasper put a hand on Emmy's shoulder. Your mama's right. You're too young to fight this battle. Then who's going to fight it? He met her eyes. Fierce and brave, and so much like her father must have been. I am. That night, Jasper rode to town. Ezra's forge was still burning when he arrived. The blacksmith looked up from his work hammer, pausing mid-swing. Didn't expect to see you. Need your help. Ezra set down the hammer, wiped his hands, gestured toward the back room. Talk. Jasper told him everything. Clara's story, Henry's journal, Emmy's witness account, Crane's threat. When he finished, Ezra was quiet for a long moment. You know what you're asking. I know. Crane's got the town in his pocket. Bank sheriff, half the merchants. Going against him means going against everyone. Not everyone. Ezra raised an eyebrow. Clara's husband kept records, names, dates, amounts. Jasper leaned forward. Crane's been skimming from the bank for years. Loans he calls in early. Fees that never get recorded. He's not just a murderer, he's a thief. And you got proof. I got Henry's journal. Clara's been carrying it for 8 months. Ezra let out a low whistle. That's why he's hunting her so hard. That's why. The blacksmith stood, paced to the window, stared out at the dark street. My father was a slave, Jasper. Freed himself when he was 16. Walked from Georgia to Montana with nothing but the clothes on his back. You know what he told me? Jasper waited. He said, boy, there's 2 kinds of chains. The ones they put on your body and the ones they put on your soul. You can survive the first kind. The second kind kills you slow. Ezra turned. This town's been wearing Crane's chains for 10 years. Maybe it's time to take them off. That mean you're in? Ezra extended his hand. I'm in. They clasped. Who else can we trust? Widow Morrison. Her husband died in that bank robbery, supposedly trying to stop it. She never believed the official story. Ezra thought. The preacher, maybe. Reverend Wells. He's got no love for Crane. Anyone else? Doc Harmon. Jasper went still. I know, Ezra said quietly. I know what he did, what he didn't do, but he's been living with that guilt for 6 years. Man drinks himself to sleep every night. Maybe this is his chance to make it right. I'm not asking anything from him. You don't have to. I'll ask. Jasper's hands were fists at his sides. The old rage, the one he'd buried with Margaret, clawed at his chest. If he says no, then he says no. But if he says yes, we've got a doctor on our side. Someone who can testify about injuries, about what really happened during that robbery. Jasper forced his hands open, breathed. Fine. But I don't want to see him. Not yet. Understood. They made plans into the night. Who to approach, how to approach them, what to say, and what to hold back. By the time Jasper rode home, dawn was breaking over the mountains. Clara was waiting on the porch. You didn't sleep. Neither did you. She handed him coffee. Their fingers brushed. I talked to Ezra. He's with us. And the rest of the town? We'll find out. Clara looked at the horizon where the sun was painting the snow pink and gold. Henry used to say that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. Jasper took a sip of coffee. Your husband was a wise man. He was, and he would have liked you. Something passed between them. Not romantic, not yet. Something deeper. Recognition. Understanding. I should check on the children. I should start on the fences. Neither of them moved. Then Emmy's voice rang out from inside. Mama Sammy's trying to eat Sergeant's tail. Clara laughed, a real laugh, surprised out of her. It transformed her face. Duty calls. She went inside. Jasper watched her go. Then he set down his coffee and walked toward the barn. 2 days left. The next morning, Widow Agnes Morrison rode up to the ranch. Jasper met her at the gate, rifle in hand, until he recognized her. She was 60 years old, iron gray hair, spine straight as a fence post. She'd never spoken to him in the 10 years he'd lived here. Mr. McAllister, I understand you've got company. Word travels. Ezra sent me. She dismounted. Said you might need allies. Might. Agnes looked at the house where Clara had appeared in the window. My husband Thomas died in that bank robbery. Marshal Crane told everyone he was a hero. Gave me a medal. A pension. Her voice hardened. But Thomas wasn't a hero. He was a bookkeeper. He kept the bank's records. And he told me the night before he died that he'd found something wrong. Something that could bring down important people. Jasper's grip tightened on the rifle. He was going to the sheriff the next morning. Instead, the bank got robbed. Agnes met his eyes. Convenient, don't you think? Too convenient. I've been waiting 10 years for someone to stand up. To say what I've known all along. She straightened. Ezra says you've got proof. We've got a journal, names and dates. Is my husband's name in there? I don't know, haven't read it all. Agnes nodded. Then let's find out. She walked toward the house. Jasper followed. Inside, Clara sat at the table with the journal open. Emmy was in the corner drawing on paper Jasper had given her. Sammy slept in a basket by the fire. Agnes stopped when she saw Clara. Something flickered across her face. Recognition maybe, or memory. You're Henry Whitmore's widow. I am. He was a good man. Came to my house after Thomas died. Asked questions no one else was asking. Agnes sat down across from Clara. I should have helped him more. I was afraid. Fear doesn't make you a bad person. No, but it makes you a useless one. Agnes looked at the journal. May I? Clara slid it across the table. Agnes read. Her face grew pale, then flushed, then settled into something like stone. Thomas Morrison, page 47. Suspected of discovering embezzlement scheme. Recommended elimination. Her voice didn't waver. They killed my husband because he found out Crane was stealing. Clara reached across the table, took the older woman's hand. They killed mine too. Agnes gripped back, hard. Then let's make them pay. By that evening, 3 more people had come. Reverend Jonah Wells arrived first, a tall man with copper skin and gray at his temples. He didn't ask questions. Just read the relevant pages, nodded once, and said, Sunday, I'll make sure the whole town is there. Clara Morrison brought 2 farmers' quiet men with weathered faces and old grievances. Crane had foreclosed on their neighbors, raised their taxes, made their lives hard in 100 small ways. We ain't fighters, one of them said, but we're tired of being afraid. Then, as the sun set, Doc Benjamin Harmon rode up. Jasper saw him through the window, felt the rage rise like bile in his throat. Jasper. Clara's voice was soft. Ezra said he might come. I know. You don't have to see him. Yes, I do. He walked outside. Harmon had aged badly. Gaunt stooped, hands trembling even in the cold. He stopped 20 feet from the porch like a man approaching a gallows. McAllister. Harmon. Silence stretched between them. I know you hate me. Harmon's voice was raw. I hate myself. Every day for 6 years I've hated myself. That's supposed to make me feel better. No, nothing can make it better. I let your wife die because I was drunk and scared and worthless. I've lived with that. I'll die with it. Harmon's eyes were wet. But I'm here now, to do something, to finally... He broke off. Couldn't continue. Jasper stared at him. The man who'd killed Margaret as surely as if he'd pulled a trigger. The face he'd imagined in every nightmare. You were the only doctor, the only one who could have saved her. I know. I begged you. I got on my knees in the snow and begged. I know. And you shut the door in my face. Harmon's tears fell freely now. I know. God help me, I know. Jasper's hands shook. Every instinct screamed at him to turn away, to send this man back into the darkness he deserved. But then he heard Emmy's voice through the window, laughing at something Clara said, and he remembered what Clara had told him, what Henry had written. Courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. Forgiveness. The hardest thing. The only thing. What can you do for us? Harmon looked up, hope breaking through the despair. I was there. The night of the robbery. Crane brought in the wounded, but the wounds didn't match the story. Entry angles were wrong. I wrote it all down, then burned it because I was scared. His voice steadied. But I remember. Every detail. I can testify. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. I haven't earned it. Harmon stepped forward. But I can start. Right now. Let me help. Let me try to be the man I should have been 6 years ago. Jasper was silent for a long time. Then he stepped aside. Come inside. There's coffee. Harmon walked past him, stopped at the door. McAllister, I'm sorry. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. But I'm sorry. Jasper didn't answer, but he didn't walk away either. Inside, Clara poured coffee for everyone. The group sat around the table, Jasper, Clara, Agnes, Ezra, Reverend Wells, the 2 farmers, and Harmon. 7 people against a marshal. Against a corrupt system. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Sunday, Reverend Wells said. After the service, I'll give Jasper the floor. He presents the evidence. We let the town decide. And if the town decides wrong, Ezra asked. Then we've done what we could. Clara spoke up. There's something else. Emmy, my daughter, she saw Crane the night Henry was murdered. She heard what he said. She's a witness. The room went quiet. Agnes leaned forward. An 8-year-old testifying against a Marshal Crane will tear her apart. I know. That's why I've said no. Clara's voice cracked. But she wants to. She keeps asking. She says her father would want her to tell the truth. Jasper looked at her. That's her choice to make, not yours. She's 8. And she's braver than most adults I know. You raised her that way. Clara's eyes filled. I'm trying to protect her. I know, but sometimes protection means letting them be who they are. He paused. Even when it scares us. Reverend Wells cleared his throat. The child could change everything. A daughter's testimony about her father's murder that's powerful, hard to dismiss. And if Crane goes after her, Jasper's voice was steel, he'll have to go through me first. The room absorbed this. Then Emmy's voice came from the doorway. I want to do it. Everyone turned. The girl stood in the hallway nightgown, white in the lamplight, face fierce and certain. I heard you talking, and I want to tell them what I saw. She looked at her mother. Papa died for the truth, Mama. I'm not going to let his dying be for nothing. Clara's tears fell. Baby. I'm not a baby anymore. You said so yourself. Emmy walked to her mother, took her hand. I can do this. I know I can. Clara looked at Jasper, helpless, terrified. He nodded once. Okay, Clara whispered. Okay. Emmy hugged her tight. We're gonna be brave, Mama, just like Papa. And in that small house, surrounded by strangers who were becoming allies, a mother and daughter held each other while the fire crackled and the night pressed close. Tomorrow would bring new dangers, but tonight they had each other, and that was enough. The day before Sunday, Deputy Floyd Henley came. Jasper was in the barn when he heard the horse. He grabbed his rifle, moved to the door. The deputy was young, maybe 25, with nervous eyes and a hand that wouldn't stay still on his holster. I ain't here for trouble. Then why are you here? Henley dismounted slowly, hands visible. Because I know what the marshal did. I've known for months, and I can't. He stopped, swallowed. I can't be part of it no more. Jasper didn't lower the rifle. Keep talking. I was there when he killed Henry Whitmore. I didn't pull the trigger, but I watched. I was supposed to be watching the door, and I watched a good man die for doing his job. Henley's voice shook. Crane said if I talked, he'd kill my family, my mother, my sisters. I believed him. So why are you here now? Because I heard what you're planning. Sunday. The church. Henley met his eyes. And I heard what that little girl's gonna do. Stand up in front of everyone and tell the truth about what she saw. Jasper's grip tightened. If an 8-year-old can face him, what's my excuse? Henley's voice cracked. I'm a coward, McAllister. I've been a coward all my life. But maybe it's not too late to change that. From the house, Clara appeared on the porch. Emmy beside her. Emmy looked at the deputy. Her face went pale. You were there. That night. I remember you. Henley flinched like he'd been shot. Yes, miss, I was. You watched my papa die. I did. Emmy walked forward, small and terrible in her certainty. Did you try to stop it? No, miss, I didn't. Why not? The question hung in the cold air. Henley's tears came silent and shamed. Because I was scared. Because I was weak. Because... He dropped to his knees in the snow. Because I wasn't the man your father was. Not even close. Emmy stood over him. This child who had seen too much, lost too much. Then she did something that made everyone stop breathing. She put her hand on his head, like a blessing, like forgiveness. My papa always said that being brave isn't about never being scared. It's about being scared and doing the right thing anyway. Her voice was clear as church bells. "You're here now. That means something." Henley looked up at her, broken and hopeful. "Does it?" "It does to me." She turned and walked back to the porch, back to her mother. Clara was crying. So was Jasper, though he'd never admit it. Henley stood slowly, wiped his face with his sleeve. "I'll testify. Sunday. I'll tell everyone what I saw, what Crane did." Jasper finally lowered his rifle. "You understand what that means." "I understand. Crane will come for you." "Let him." Henley's voice was steady now. Something had changed in his eyes. "I've been dead inside for 8 months. At least this way I die for something." Jasper extended his hand. Henley took it. "Welcome to the fight." That night, Jasper sat on the porch alone. The house was quiet. Clara and the children asleep. Sergeant at his feet. He looked up at the hill, the 2 crosses dark against the stars. "Well, Margaret," he said softly, "tomorrow we either win or we lose. Either way, nothing's gonna be the same." The wind stirred, cold and clean. "I found them. Or they found me. Doesn't matter which." He paused. "You'd like her. Clara. She's strong like you were. Stubborn like you too." Sergeant's tail thumped once. "And those kids." Jasper's voice thickened. "Emmy reminds me of what Grace might have been, if she'd had the chance." He was quiet for a long time. "I don't know if this is right. Standing up against the whole town, risking everything for people I just met." He looked at his hands, calloused and scarred. "But I know that walking away would be wrong. Keeping quiet would be wrong. And I've been wrong for too long already." The back door creaked. Clara stepped onto the porch, wrapped in a blanket against the cold. "Couldn't sleep either." "Too much thinking." She sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "I heard you talking. To Margaret." Jasper nodded. "Tell me about her." So he did. Late into the night he told Clara about Margaret. How they met. How they married. How she laughed at his jokes even when they weren't funny. How she sang while she cooked. How she loved sunsets and hated mornings and believed that every person deserved a second chance. And when he was done, Clara told him about Henry. His quiet strength, his terrible puns, the way he'd read to Emmy every night without fail, the way he'd looked at her on their wedding day like she was the only person in the world. 2 grieving people sharing their losses under the stars. By the time the sun rose, something had shifted between them. Not love, not yet, but the possibility of it. Jasper stood, stretched. "I should get ready." "Jasper." Clara caught his hand. "Whatever happens today, thank you. For everything." He looked at her. This woman who'd walked through fire for her children, who carried her husband's truth like a sacred burden. "We ain't done yet." She smiled, small but real. "No, we're not." Inside, Emmy was already awake, already dressed in her best dress, hair braided neat. "I'm ready, Mr. Jasper." He knelt in front of her. "You know what's going to happen today?" "Yes, sir." "You know it might be scary." "Yes, sir." "And you still want to do this?" Emmy's chin lifted. "My papa died for the truth. I'm gonna live for it." Jasper put his hand on her shoulder. "Then let's go tell it." They walked out together. All of them. Jasper. Clara, Emmy, Sammy in his mother's arms. The wagon was ready. The road to town waited. And Sunday morning dawned cold and bright over Willow Creek. The wagon wheels crunched through the frozen snow as they approached Willow Creek. Jasper held the reins steady, Clara beside him, with Sammy bundled against her chest. In the back, Emmy sat straight as a soldier, her small hands folded in her lap. No one spoke. The town appeared through the morning mist. Smoke rising from chimneys. Horses tied outside the saloon. The church steeple pointing at the gray sky like an accusation. "Jasper!" Clara's voice was tight. "There are more horses than usual." He'd noticed. 20, maybe 30 tied along the main street. Far more than a normal Sunday. Word got out. Crane knows we're coming. Probably. Clara's hand found his arm. Squeezed once. "Whatever happens in there, don't." Jasper's voice was rough. "Don't say goodbye. We ain't done yet." She nodded. Drew a breath. Emmy's voice came from behind them. "Mr. Jasper, I'm scared." He turned. Looked at the girl who'd walked 200 miles on bleeding feet. Who'd watched her father die. Who was about to stand in front of a town and accuse a murderer. "Good." Emmy blinked. "Good. Fear means you understand what's at stake. Fools don't feel fear. Brave people do." He held her eyes. "You're the bravest person I know, Emmeline Whitmore. Don't ever forget that." Emmy's chin lifted. The fear didn't leave her eyes, but something else joined it. Determination. "I won't forget." They pulled up outside the church. Ezra was waiting with Agnes Morrison and the two farmers. Doc Harmon stood apart, shoulders hunched like a man expecting a blow. Deputy Henley paced near the church steps, badge gleaming on his chest. "They're all inside," Ezra said quietly. "Crane's in the front row, got 6 men with him, armed." "How many for us?" "Hard to say. Reverend Wells has been preaching about justice for 2 weeks. Some folks are listening, others." He shrugged. "Others are scared. Can't blame them for that." Clara climbed down from the wagon, Sammy fussing against her shoulder. She looked at the church doors, at the people filing in, casting curious glances their way. "It's time." Emmy jumped down, smoothed her dress, walked to her mother's side. They entered together. The church fell silent. Every head turned, every eye fixed on them as they walked down the center aisle. Jasper in front. Clara and Emmy behind Sammy, quiet for once. Marshal Douglas Crane sat in the front row, arms crossed, smile playing at his lips. The men beside him were hard-faced and watchful. Reverend Wells stood at the pulpit, Bible open before him. "Welcome," he said, voice carrying through the hushed room. "All of God's children are welcome in his house." Crane's smile widened. They took seats in the third row. Ezra and Agnes flanked them. Harmon slid into the row behind. Henley remained standing near the door. The service began. Hymns were sung with trembling voices. Prayers were offered with distracted hearts. Everyone knew something was coming. The tension pressed down like a physical weight. Finally, Reverend Wells closed his Bible. "Brothers and sisters, I have served this community for 12 years. I have baptized your children, married your sons and daughters, buried your dead." His eyes swept the congregation. "I have watched this town grow and prosper, but I have also watched it change." Crane shifted in his seat. "Fear has taken root here. Fear of speaking truth. Fear of challenging power. Fear of standing alone." Wells gripped the pulpit. "But the good book tells us that perfect love casts out fear. And today some brave souls have come to cast out the fear that has held us captive." He stepped aside. "Mr. McAllister, the floor is yours." Jasper stood, walked to the front of the church, faced the crowd. "Most of you don't know me. I've lived 12 miles out for 10 years, kept to myself. Had my reasons." He paused. "But a week ago, 3 people came to my door. A woman and 2 children. They'd walked 200 miles through winter because every town between here and Rollins had turned them away." Murmurs rippled through the congregation. They were running from a man who murdered the woman's husband. A man who's been lying to all of you for years. A man who sits in this church right now wearing a badge he don't deserve. Crane rose slowly. "That's quite an accusation, McAllister." "It's the truth. You've got proof." Jasper reached into his coat, pulled out Henry's journal, held it up. Henry Whitmore was a deputy sheriff, an honest man, and he kept records. Every crooked deal, every stolen dollar, every person who was silenced or killed when they got too close to the truth. The church erupted, voices shouting, people standing. Crane's men moved toward the aisle. "Sit down," Reverend Wells' voice thundered. "All of you, this is a house of God." Order barely returned. Crane's voice was silk over steel. "A journal can be forged. Words can be invented. You expect these good people to believe accusations from a hermit and a dead man's widow. I expect them to hear the truth." Jasper looked at Agnes. "Mrs. Morrison." Agnes stood. Her voice was steady. "My husband Thomas was a bookkeeper at the bank. He discovered that funds were being embezzled. He told me about it the night before the robbery." She faced Crane directly. "The night before he was conveniently killed. His name is in that journal. Recommended for elimination. Your words, Marshal." Crane's smile flickered. A woman in the back stood. "My brother was one of the men killed in that robbery. You told us he died a hero." "He did die a hero. You told us there were 5 robbers, but my brother wrote to me the week before, said he was nervous, said the marshal had asked him strange questions about bank security." More voices rose, more accusations, years of suspicion and whispered doubts suddenly finding voice. Crane raised his hands. "These are grieving people, confused, looking for someone to blame." "Then explain this." Doc Harmon pushed through the crowd. His voice was raw, but his hands had stopped shaking. "I treated the wounded that night. 3 men with gunshot wounds. But the entry angles were wrong. 2 of them were shot in the back, from inside the bank, not from robbers outside." Gasps. "You examined them," someone shouted. "I was drunk and scared and I said nothing for 8 years." Harmon's voice broke. "But I remember. God help me, I remember everything." Crane's composure cracked. His hand moved toward his holster. "You're all listening to a drunk, a hermit, and a desperate widow. This is a circus. I saw you." Emmy's voice cut through the chaos, small and clear as a bell. Everyone went silent. The girl stood, walked to the front of the church, stood beside Jasper, barely reaching his elbow. "I saw you, Marshal Crane. The night you killed my papa." Crane's face went pale. "I was supposed to be asleep, but I heard voices. I came downstairs. I saw you in our parlor." Emmy's voice didn't waver. "You said, 'Henry, you should have taken the money when I offered.' Papa said, 'I took an oath.' And you said, 'Then you die for it.'" The silence was absolute. "Then you shot him, right in front of me, and you told Mama if she ever talked you'd kill us too." Emmy's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. "I've been running for 8 months. I'm tired of running, and I'm tired of being scared of you." Crane's hand found his gun. "You lying little—" Jasper stepped in front of Emmy, his own hand on his revolver. "You pull that weapon in a church, you better be ready to use it." The 2 men faced each other. The congregation held its breath. Deputy Henley moved forward. His hand was shaking, but his voice was clear. "Marshal Douglas Crane, I'm placing you under arrest." Crane laughed. "On what authority? I'm your superior boy." "On the authority of the truth I've been hiding for 8 months." Henley's voice strengthened. "I was there that night too. I watched you kill Henry Whitmore. I watched you plant evidence on good men. I said nothing because you threatened my family." He pulled off his badge, threw it at Crane's feet. "I'm done being scared of you." Crane's men moved, hands on weapons, but the congregation moved too. Farmers standing, shopkeepers rising, women placing themselves between Crane and the children. Ezra stepped forward, hammer in hand. "You want to fight, Marshal? You'll get one." The 2 farmers flanked him. Agnes Morrison produced a pistol from her skirts. Even the preacher took a step toward Crane. "You're outnumbered," Jasper said quietly, "and outmatched. Your men might win a gunfight, but they won't survive it. And neither will you." Crane looked around the church, at the faces of people he'd controlled for a decade, at the fear transforming into anger, at the walls closing in. For a long moment, no one moved. Then one of Crane's men holstered his weapon. "I ain't dying for him." Another followed, then another. Crane stood alone. "This isn't over," he snarled. "You have no legal authority, no jurisdiction. This is justice." Clara stepped forward, Sammy in her arms, standing beside her daughter. "The kind you've been denying for years, the kind my husband died for." She held up the journal. "Everything is here. Every crime, every victim, every lie." Her voice carried to every corner of the church. "We're sending copies to the territorial governor, to the federal marshal in Denver, to every newspaper between here and Washington." Crane's face twisted. "You're dead. All of you. I have friends in—" "Your friends are abandoning you as we speak." Reverend Wells's voice was cold. "I sent telegrams this morning, the governor's office, the railroad commission, everyone who's been covering for you." He smiled grimly. "By tomorrow you'll have no friends left." Crane lunged, not toward Jasper, toward Emmy. Time slowed. Jasper's hand moved. His revolver cleared leather before Crane took 2 steps. The shot echoed through the church. Crane stumbled, looked down at the blood spreading across his shoulder, looked up at Jasper with pure hatred. I should kill you." Jasper's voice was steady. The gun didn't waver. "For Henry Whitmore, for Thomas Morrison, for Margaret and Grace, for every person you've hurt." Crane fell to his knees, clutching his shoulder. "But I'm not like you." Jasper lowered the weapon. "You'll stand trial. You'll face justice. Real justice. The kind that comes from law, not bullets." Deputy Henley moved forward with rope, bound Crane's hands behind his back. "Douglas Crane, you're under arrest for murder, embezzlement, and conspiracy. You have the right to—" Crane spat at his feet. Henley didn't flinch. "Get him out of here." 2 farmers hauled Crane to his feet, dragged him toward the door. The former marshal struggled, shouted threats, promised vengeance. No one listened. As he was pulled past Emmy, the girl looked up at him. "My papa was right. The truth always wins." Crane's face contorted. Then he was gone. The church erupted. Not in chaos this time, but in release. People embracing, weeping. Years of fear and silence breaking like ice in spring. Agnes Morrison sank into a pew, head bowed. "Thomas," she whispered. "We did it, Thomas." Doc Harmon stood alone, tears streaming down his face. No one approached him. No one forgave him. But no one attacked him either. Emmy ran to her mother. Clara caught her, held her tight. Sammy squeezed between them. "You did it, baby. You did it." "We did it, Mama. All of us." Jasper watched them, mother and daughter and son, a family forged in fire. Ezra clapped him on the shoulder. "Hell of a Sunday, McAllister." "Reckon so." "What now?" Jasper looked at Clara, at the tears on her face, at the light in her eyes. "Now we rebuild." The crowd slowly dispersed. People approached. Jasper shook his hand, thanked him. He accepted it awkwardly, unused to attention. Clara found him on the church steps. "They're taking Crane to the jail. Henley's organizing a guard, making sure he doesn't escape." "Good." She stood beside him, their shoulders touched. "It's really over. The hard part is—" "What's the easy part?" He turned to look at her. "Living, building something new, finding out what comes next." Clara's hand found his. "I'd like to find out, if you would." Jasper's throat tightened. He thought of Margaret, of Grace, of 5 years of silence and grief, of a life half-lived because living fully hurt too much. "Yeah," he said finally. "I'd like that too." Emmy ran up the steps breathless. "Mr. Jasper, the preacher says there's going to be a town meeting tomorrow to figure out what happens now. And Mrs. Morrison says we can stay at her boarding house tonight if we want. And Mr. Ezra says—" Slow down, child. But Jasper was smiling. Actually smiling. One thing at a time. Sorry, I'm just... She bounced on her heels. I'm happy. Is that okay? Is it okay to be happy? Clara knelt, took her daughter's face in both hands. It's more than okay, baby. It's everything. Emmy hugged her mother, looked up at Jasper. Can we go home now, to the ranch? Home. The word settled into Jasper's chest, warm and right. Yeah, he said. Let's go home. They walked to the wagon together. Behind them, the church bells began to ring. Not for service, but for celebration. For freedom. Jasper helped Clara up, lifted Emmy to the back, made sure Sammy was secure. As they rode out of town, people waved. Called out thanks and blessings. Emmy waved back enthusiastically. Clara leaned against Jasper's shoulder. It's strange, she murmured. Feeling safe. I almost forgot what it was like. You'll remember. Will I? He looked at her. This woman who'd walked through hell for her children. Who'd trusted a stranger with everything she had. I'll make sure of it. The road stretched before them. 12 miles of white snow and blue sky. Somewhere behind them, Marshal Crane sat in a jail cell, his empire crumbling. Somewhere ahead, a weathered ranch waited. A spare room, a future. And on the hill behind the house, 2 crosses stood silent. Watching, waiting, welcoming. Jasper flicked the reins. The horses moved forward. And for the first time in 6 years, the road felt like it was leading somewhere. Not away from grief. Toward hope. 3 days after the church confrontation, Jasper woke to gunfire. He was out of bed before his eyes fully opened, rifle in hand, moving toward the window. 2 shots. Then silence. Clara appeared in the hallway, Sammy clutched to her chest. Emmy pressed behind her. Stay here. Jasper moved toward the door. Jasper. Stay here. He stepped onto the porch. The cold hit him like a fist. Dawn was just breaking, painting the snow blue and gray. Sergeant was barking, hackles raised facing the road. A horse was coming. Fast. Jasper raised his rifle. Deputy Henley came into view, riding hard. He pulled up at the fence, nearly falling off his horse. They're coming. His voice was ragged. Crane's men, 6 of them. Broke him out an hour ago. Jasper's blood went cold. Where? I don't know. They killed Tom Mercer. Shot him when he tried to stop them. Henley's hands were shaking. I rode straight here. They'll be coming for her. For the journal. Clara stepped onto the porch. Clara, I told you. I heard. Her face was pale but steady. How long do we have? Henley shook his head. Maybe an hour, maybe less. Jasper's mind raced. 6 armed men, 1 rifle, a woman, 2 children, and a deputy who could barely hold his gun steady. Get inside, all of you. We should run. Run where they've got horses. We've got a wagon. Jasper grabbed Henley's arm, pulled him toward the house. We make our stand here. Inside, he moved fast, pulled the spare rifle from above the mantel, checked the ammunition, handed the second weapon to Clara. You know how to use this. Henry taught me. Good. Take the children to the back room. Bar the door. Don't come out no matter what you hear. I'm not hiding while you... You're protecting your children. That's not hiding. That's fighting. He gripped her shoulders. If they get past me, you're the last line. Understand? Clara's jaw tightened. She nodded once. Emmy's voice came from the hallway. Mr. Jasper. He turned. The girl stood in her nightgown, bare feet on the cold floor. Behind her, Sammy was crying in the basket. Are the bad men coming? Jasper knelt in front of her. Yeah, sweetheart. They are. Are you gonna stop them? He looked at this child who'd been through so much, who'd stood in front of a church and accused a murderer, who deserved a life without fear. I'm gonna try my best. Emmy threw her arms around his neck. Held tight. Don't die, Mr. Jasper. Please don't die." His throat closed. He hugged her back, breathed in the scent of soap and childhood. "I'll do my best on that too." Clara pulled Emmy away, guided her toward the back room. At the door she turned. "Jasper." He looked at her. "Come back to us." Then she was gone. Jasper turned to Henley. The young man was checking his revolver hands, still trembling. "You ready for this?" "No." Henley met his eyes. "But I'm done running." "Good enough." They took positions, Jasper at the front window, Henley at the side. Sergeant stationed himself at the door, growling low. Minutes passed, each one an eternity. Then Jasper heard it. Hoofbeats, multiple horses, coming fast. "Here they come." 6 riders crested the ridge. Crane was in the middle arm in a sling, face twisted with rage. The men beside him were armed to the teeth. They stopped 50 feet from the house. "McAllister." Crane's voice carried across the snow. "You've got something that belongs to me." Jasper didn't answer. "Send out the woman and the journal. Do it now, and maybe I let you live." Silence. Crane spat. "Have it your way." The riders spread out. 2 moving left, 2 right, Crane, and 1 other staying center. "They're flanking us," Henley whispered. "I see them." Jasper tracked the movement. 6 men, 2 guns. Impossible odds. A shot rang out. Not from the riders, from behind the house. One of the flanking men fell from his saddle. Jasper spun. Through the back window he saw a figure on the ridge. A woman with a rifle. Gray hair streaming in the wind. Agnes Morrison. Another shot. A second man went down. Crane screamed orders. The remaining riders converged on the house. Jasper fired through the window. Missed. Fired again. Caught 1 man in the shoulder. Henley's revolver cracked. Once. Twice. A rider fell. But the others kept coming. The front door exploded inward. A man burst through, gun blazing. Sergeant launched himself. 70 pounds of fury hitting the intruder's chest. The gun flew. Man and dog went down in a snarling tangle. Jasper swung his rifle. Cracked it across another man's skull as he came through the window. Gunfire everywhere. Smoke. Screaming. Henley cried out. Jasper turned. The deputy was down, clutching his leg. Blood spreading across the floor. "Floyd, I'm okay behind you." Jasper spun. Crane stood in the doorway, revolver raised, aimed at Jasper's chest. "Should have stayed out of it, McAllister." Time stopped. Jasper saw his death in Crane's eyes. Saw Margaret waiting. Saw Grace. Saw the peace he'd been denied for 6 years finally within reach. Then a shot rang out. Crane's gun flew from his hand. He screamed, clutching his shattered fingers. Clara stood in the hallway, smoke rising from the rifle in her hands. Her face was stone. "That's for Henry." Crane staggered backward, blood dripping from his ruined hand. "You?" "Shut up." Clara's voice was ice. "On your knees." Crane fell to his knees. The fight drained out of him. Without his gun, without his men, he was nothing. Just an old man bleeding on a stranger's floor. "It's over, Crane." Jasper stepped forward. "All of it." Crane looked up at him, hatred and fear warring in his eyes. "You think this ends anything? I have friends. Connections. They'll never stop hunting her." "Then let them come." Clara moved to stand beside Jasper. "I'm done running, and I'm done being afraid of men like you." Hoofbeats outside. Jasper tensed. But it wasn't Crane's men. Ezra Polk rode up with 4 farmers behind him, all armed, all grim. "Heard the shooting from town." Ezra took in the carnage. "Looks like we missed the party." "Most of it." Agnes Morrison appeared at the back door, rifle still smoking. "Got 2 of them trying to flank around." Her voice was steady. "Thomas would have been proud." Jasper looked around. Henley was being tended by one of the farmers. Sergeant was licking a wound on his shoulder but standing. Clara was trembling now that the danger had passed, and Crane was still on his knees, broken, finished. "Get him out of here." Jasper's voice was weary. "Take him back to town. This time chain him to the floor." Ezra hauled Crane to his feet. "My men. 2 dead, 2 wounded. 1 ran." Ezra shoved him toward the door. "You're done, Crane. Accept it." They dragged him out. His screamed threats faded into the distance. Silence settled over the house. Clara's rifle clattered to the floor. She was shaking violently now. "Clara!" Jasper moved to her, caught her as her knees buckled. Hey, it's over." "I shot him. You saved my life." "I've never shot anyone before. Henry taught me, but I never—" "Clara, look at me." She looked up, tears streaming down her face. "You did what you had to do. You protected your family." "I was so scared. When I heard the gunfire, I thought—" She broke down. "I thought I was going to lose you too." Jasper held her, let her cry, let himself feel the relief and the terror and the gratitude all at once. Emmy's voice came from the back room. "Mama, Mr. Jasper, can we come out now?" Clara laughed through her tears. "Yes, baby, you can come out." Emmy appeared with Sammy in her arms. The baby was crying, but Emmy's face was determined. "I kept him safe, Mama, just like you said." Clara took both children into her arms, held them like she'd never let go. Jasper watched them, his family, not by blood, by choice. "Mr. Jasper?" Emmy's voice was muffled against her mother's shoulder. "Yeah, sweetheart. Is the bad man gone for good this time?" Jasper knelt beside them, put his arms around all 3. "Yeah, he's gone for good." Emmy sighed, relaxed for the first time in days. "Good. I'm tired of bad men." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." They stayed like that for a long moment. 4 people holding each other in a bullet-scarred house, finding peace in the wreckage. Agnes Morrison cleared her throat from the doorway. "Not to interrupt, but that deputy needs a proper doctor, and someone should start cleaning up this mess." Jasper stood. "You're right. I usually am?" Agnes's stern face softened. "You did good, McAllister. Thomas would have liked you." "Thank you, ma'am." She nodded once, then went to help with Henley. Clara stood too, wiping her face. "The house can be fixed. The door can be replaced." "Jasper." She caught his hand. "I'm sorry for bringing this to your door, for putting you in danger." "Stop." He turned to face her fully. "You didn't bring anything I didn't choose. I chose this. I chose you." Clara's breath caught. "You." "I spent 6 years being dead while my heart kept beating. You reminded me what living feels like." He touched her face, gently, reverently. "Whatever comes next, we face it together, all of us." Clara's tears fell fresh. "Together." Emmy tugged on Jasper's shirt. "Does this mean we're a family now? For real?" Jasper looked at Clara. She nodded, smiling through her tears. "Yeah, Emmy, for real." Emmy whooped, loud enough to startle Sammy into silence. "I knew it. I knew it the first day I told Mama you were sad but kind. And sad but kind people make the best families." She threw herself at Jasper. He caught her, lifted her up. Sammy grabbed his shirt collar. Clara pressed against his side. 4 people. 1 family. Forged in fire. Through the broken window the sun rose higher. The snow sparkled. The 2 crosses on the hill caught the light. Jasper looked at them. "Thank you," he whispered. Too soft for anyone to hear. The wind answered. Warm for a moment despite the winter. Like a blessing. Like permission. Like love, reaching across the divide between worlds. A week later, the territorial marshal arrived from Denver. He took custody of Crane, reviewed the evidence, and declared that the former marshal would stand trial for murder, embezzlement, and corruption. The town of Willow Creek began to heal. Loans were renegotiated. Foreclosures were reversed. Families who'd lost everything to Crane's greed started getting it back. Doc Harmon left town. No one knew where he went. Some said he headed east looking for redemption. Others said he just drank himself to death somewhere quiet. Jasper hoped he found peace. Even after everything. Deputy Henley recovered from his wound. The town elected him sheriff. He wore the badge like it weighed 100 pounds, but he wore it honest. Agnes Morrison became something of a town matriarch. Her boarding house filled with travelers and lost souls, and she turned no one away. And at the McAllister Ranch, life settled into something like normal. Clara took over the household with quiet efficiency. The spare room became hers and the children's, though Emmy spent most of her time in the barn with the animals. Jasper taught her to ride, to rope, to read the weather and the land. She called him Mr. Jasper for 3 more weeks. Then one morning she slipped. "Pa, can you help me with the—" She stopped, eyes wide, hand over her mouth. Jasper froze. Clara appeared in the doorway, Sammy on her hip. Emmy's face crumpled. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean— You're not my real pa. I know that. I just—" Jasper knelt in front of her. His voice was rough. "Say it again." Emmy looked confused. "What?" "Call me that again." She hesitated. "Pa—" Something broke open in Jasper's chest. Something that had been frozen for 6 years. He pulled her into his arms, held her tight. "Yes, sweetheart, I'm here." Emmy clung to him, crying and laughing at the same time. Clara watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her face. But she was smiling. That night after the children were asleep, Jasper and Clara sat on the porch. The stars were bright. The air was cold. Sergeant slept at their feet. "She called me Pa." "I heard?" "I never thought—" He stopped. Couldn't continue. Clara took his hand. "Henry used to say that family isn't about blood. It's about choosing each other every day, no matter what." He was a wise man. He was. She squeezed his hand. "And so are you." They sat in comfortable silence. "Clara." "Yes. I've been thinking." "Dangerous pastime." He smiled. "Maybe. But I've been thinking about the future. About us." She turned to face him. Patient. Waiting. "I know it's too soon. I know there are things we need to figure out. But I want you to know." He struggled with the words. "I want you to know that this is real for me. You and the children. This life. I'm not just helping out. I'm not just being kind." "I know." "You do." She touched his face. "I've known since the first night. When you gave us your mother's quilt." "Margaret's quilt." "I know. Emmy told me." Her thumb traced his cheekbone. "You gave us the most precious thing you had left." That's when I knew. Jasper closed his eyes, let himself feel her touch. "I'm not ready to—" He paused. "I loved Margaret. I'll always love her. But Jasper." Clara's voice was gentle. "I'm not asking you to forget her. I'm not asking you to stop loving her. Love isn't a limited resource." He opened his eyes. "What are you asking?" "I'm asking for time, for patience, for the chance to build something together." She smiled. "That's all? Just a chance?" He thought about Margaret, about what she would want for him. Live, she'd said with her last breath. "Promise me you'll live." He'd broken that promise for 6 years. Maybe it was time to keep it. "You've got more than a chance," he said quietly. "You've got whatever you want, whatever you need, for as long as you want it." Clara's eyes filled. "Jasper McAllister, that might be the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me." "Don't get used to it. I'm not good with words." "You're better than you think." She leaned in, kissed his cheek, soft and warm. Then she stood. "Good night, Jasper." "Good night, Clara." She went inside. He heard her footsteps in the hallway, the creak of the spare room door. Jasper stayed on the porch, looking at the stars, at the crosses on the hill. "I think I'm falling in love with her, Margaret," he said softly. "I hope that's okay." The wind stirred, gentle, approving. Jasper smiled. For the first time in 6 years, the future didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like a promise. Spring came to Montana like a secret finally told. The snow began to melt in March 1st from the roof of the barn, then from the fences, then from the hill where the two crosses stood. Emmy planted wildflower seeds around the graves, checking them every morning before breakfast. "They're not growing yet, Pa." Jasper looked up from the fence he was mending. The word still hit him somewhere deep every time she said it. "Give them time, sweetheart. Good things don't rush." "Mama says the same thing." Emmy kicked at a clump of mud. "She says it about you two." Jasper's hammer missed the nail. "What?" "She says you're both being stubborn about feelings, that you dance around each other like scared chickens." Emmy grinned. "Her words, not mine." "Is that so?" "Yep, Mrs. Morrison says the same thing. She told Mama that if you don't propose by summer, she's gonna lock you both in the barn until you figure it out." Jasper set down the hammer. "You've been listening to adult conversations again." "Can't help it, y'all talk loud." She skipped off toward the house, leaving Jasper staring at the fence post. Propose. The word sat in his chest like a stone. He looked at the crosses on the hill. At Margaret's name, weathered but readable. "What do you think?" he asked quietly. "Is it too soon? Is it?" The wind stirred, warm, carrying the scent of new grass. Jasper closed his eyes. When he opened them, he knew what he had to do. That evening he rode to town alone. Ezra was closing up the forge when Jasper arrived. The blacksmith looked up, wiped his hands, raised an eyebrow. "Twice in 1 month. You're getting sociable, McAllister." "Need a favor." "Name it." Jasper reached into his pocket, pulled out a small leather pouch. Inside was a gold ring, simple and worn. "Margaret's wedding band." Ezra's voice softened. "You sure about this?" "I want you to melt it down, make something new." Jasper's voice was steady, but his hands weren't. "A ring for Clara. Something that honors what was but makes room for what's coming." Ezra took the ring carefully, held it to the lamplight. "This is a big step." "I know." "You ready for it?" Jasper thought about Clara, about her laugh, her strength, the way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching. "I've been ready since she walked out of the snow and into my life." Ezra smiled. "Give me a week." "Take your time. I want it perfect." "It will be." Jasper rode home in the dark. The stars were thick overhead. The air smelled like spring. Clara was waiting on the porch. "You went to town." "Needed to see Ezra about something." She tilted her head. "Something secret." "Something important." Clara studied him for a long moment, then she smiled. "I trust you." 3 words, simple and devastating. Jasper climbed the porch steps, stopped in front of her. "Clara?" "Yes." He wanted to tell her everything, about the ring, about his plans, about the future he saw every time he closed his eyes. But not yet, not until it was perfect. "Nothing, just, I'm glad you're here." She reached up, touched his face. "So am I." They stood like that until Emmy called from inside. "Dinner's getting cold, and Sammy's trying to eat Sergeant's food again." Clara laughed, pulled away. "Duty calls." "Always does." They went inside together. 4 days later, tragedy struck. Jasper was in the barn when he heard Clara scream. He dropped the pitchfork and ran, crashed through the back door. Clara was on her knees in the kitchen. Sammy lay still in her arms. "He's not breathing. Jasper, he's not breathing. The world stopped. Jasper grabbed the baby, tilted his head back, put his ear to the tiny chest. Nothing. What happened? He was eating. He grabbed something from the table. I turned around for 1 second. Get Doc Harmon. He left town. Then get anyone, go. Clara ran. Jasper looked at Sammy, at the blue tinge spreading across his lips, at the stillness that shouldn't exist in a child so young. He remembered another baby, another stillness, Grace in his arms growing cold. No, not again. He turned Sammy over, pounded his back. Once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. Come on, boy. Come on. Again. Harder. Emmy appeared in the doorway. Pa. What's wrong with Sammy? Go to your room, Emmy. But now. She fled. Jasper kept pounding. Keep praying to a God he wasn't sure he believed in anymore. Please, please, I can't lose another one. Not like this, please. 1 more pound. Sammy coughed. A small piece of bread flew from his mouth. He gasped, screamed. The most beautiful sound Jasper had ever heard. That's it, boy. Breathe, Sammy wailed, red-faced and furious and alive. Jasper collapsed against the wall, held the baby to his chest, felt the tiny heart pounding against his own. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. Clara burst through the door with the new doctor behind her. She saw Sammy screaming and stopped dead. He's okay, choked on some bread, got it out. Clara's legs gave out. She sank to the floor beside him, took Sammy from his arms, held the baby so tight he squirmed. When I saw him, I thought, I know. Jasper put his arms around both of them. I know. The doctor checked Sammy over, declared him healthy, but suggested smaller pieces of food in the future. Clara barely heard him. After he left, they sat on the kitchen floor. Sammy had cried himself to sleep against Clara's chest. Emmy had crept out of her room and was pressed against Jasper's side. I was so scared, Pa. Me too, sweetheart. But you saved him. Jasper looked at the baby, at the steady rise and fall of his chest. Almost didn't. Clara's hand found his. But you did. That's what matters. Emmy looked up at him. You're a hero, Pa. A real hero. Jasper shook his head. I'm not a hero. I'm just a man who loves his family. The words came out before he could stop them. His family. Clara's breath caught. Emmy beamed. Say it again, Pa. He looked at Clara, at the tears in her eyes, at the question and the hope and the love all tangled together. My family. His voice was rough. You're my family, all of you, have been since the moment you walked out of that snow. Clara's tears fell. Jasper. I know it's not official. I know there are things we need to do, words we need to say, but in here... He touched his chest. In here it's already done. Has been for weeks. Emmy tugged his sleeve. Does that mean you're gonna marry Mama? Emmy. Clara's face flushed, but Jasper looked at the girl seriously. I'm planning on asking her, when the ring's ready, when the time's right. Clara stared at him. Ring? Had Ezra make one, from Margaret's band. He held her gaze. Thought it was fitting, taking what was and making it part of what is. Clara's hand went to her mouth. You don't have to answer now, Jasper added quickly. I know it's sudden. I know Henry. Yes, he blinked. What? Yes. Clara laughed through her tears. Yes, I'll marry you, Jasper McAllister. Ring or no ring. Today, tomorrow, whenever you want. Emmy shrieked, loud enough to wake Sammy, who started crying again. You're getting married? Mama's getting married. I'm gonna have a real pa. Clara laughed and cried at the same time. Jasper pulled her close, baby and all. I love you, he said. First time. Words he thought he'd never say again. I love you too. Clara pressed her forehead to his. I've loved you since you gave us your mother's quilt. Margaret's quilt. I know. That's why I loved you. Because you gave away something precious to strangers who had nothing. Jasper kissed her, soft and tender and full of promise. Emmy made gagging noises. Gross. Can you do that after I leave the room? They laughed. All of them. Even Sammy, who didn't understand, but wanted to be part of the joy. And in that kitchen, on that floor, surrounded by the wreckage of fear and the bloom of love, a family became official. The wedding took place in April. Reverend Wells performed the ceremony on the hill behind the house, between the two crosses where Margaret and Grace rested. It was Clara's idea. They should be part of this, she'd said. They're part of our story too. Emmy was the flower girl. She scattered wildflower petals that she'd grown herself, seeds finally blooming after weeks of patient waiting. Sammy sat in Agnes Morrison's lap, grabbing at everything within reach. Ezra stood as best man. The ring he'd made was simple and beautiful old gold, shaped into something new. Half the town came. Farmers who'd stood with them in the church. Shopkeepers who'd found their voices. Sheriff Henley in his pressed uniform. Even Doc Harmon came back, stood at the edge of the crowd, didn't speak, just watched. When it was over, he approached Jasper. Congratulations. Thank you. They stood in awkward silence. I'm leaving again, Harmon said. Going to California. There's a hospital there. They need doctors. That's good? I wanted to say. Harmon stopped, started again. What you did for that woman and her children. What you did for this town. It matters. It shows people that one person can make a difference. Jasper didn't know what to say. I'm trying to make a difference too. Where I'm going, who I help. Harmon's eyes were clear sober for the first time Jasper had ever seen. I'm trying to become the man I should have been that night. The man who rides through the storm instead of shutting the door. Jasper thought about Margaret. About forgiveness. About the weight of carrying hatred. He extended his hand. Harmon stared at it. I don't deserve. Nobody deserves forgiveness. That's what makes it forgiveness. Harmon took his hand, gripped hard. Thank you. Go save some lives, Doc. Make it count. Harmon nodded, turned, walked away. Jasper watched him go, felt something release in his chest, some old knot finally coming undone. Clara appeared at his side. That was generous. That was necessary. For me, not for him. She took his hand, squeezed. How do you feel? Jasper looked at his wife, at his daughter chasing butterflies, at his son trying to eat grass while Agnes wrestled him away. Like I'm finally home. Summer came hot and bright. The ranch transformed. Clara planted a garden. Emmy got a pony for her 9th birthday. Sammy took his first real steps toddling across the porch into Jasper's arms. Ezra visited every Sunday. He and Emmy played checkers while Jasper and Clara sat on the porch. She's getting better, Ezra complained one evening. Beat me 3 times today. She's been practicing with Pa, Emmy called from inside. He says checkers teaches strategy. Pa, huh? Ezra grinned at Jasper. Still gets me hearing that. Gets me too. Clara came out with lemonade, sat beside Jasper, close enough that their shoulders touched. Henley stopped by earlier, says Crane's trial is set for August. Good. They want Emmy to testify again, in front of the territorial judge. Jasper's jaw tightened. She's already been through enough. She wants to do it. Clara's voice was soft. I asked her. She said she wants to see it through, make sure justice gets done. She's 9 years old. She's also the bravest person either of us knows. Jasper couldn't argue with that. That night he found Emmy on the hill, sitting between the 2 crosses, talking. He stopped a few feet away, didn't want to interrupt. And Pa taught me to rope today. I'm getting really good. Mama says I might be better than him soon, but don't tell him I said that. Jasper smiled. And Sammy's walking everywhere now. He's fast too. Yesterday he almost made it to the pond before Sergeant stopped him. That dog's a hero. She was quiet for a moment. I know you're listening, Mrs. Margaret. Ma Grace too. I talk to my real papa sometimes in my head, and I think maybe you can all hear us, from wherever you are. Jasper's eyes burned. I just wanted to say thank you for sharing him with us. Pa, I mean. He was yours first. I know that. And I'm grateful you let him be ours too. She placed a small bunch of wildflowers between the crosses. We'll take good care of him. I promise. She stood, turned, saw Jasper. Pa, how long have you been there? Long enough. Emmy's face flushed. I know. He held out his hand. Come on, Mama's making pie. Emmy took his hand. They walked down the hill together. Pa. Yes, sweetheart. Do you think they heard me? Mrs. Margaret and Ma Grace? Jasper looked at the crosses, at the wildflowers, at the sky turning orange and gold. Yeah, he said quietly. I think they heard every word. Emmy smiled. Good. August brought the trial. They traveled to Helena, all of them. Clara insisted on coming. Emmy insisted harder. The territorial courthouse was packed. Crane sat at the defendant's table thinner than before, eyes hollow. His lawyers spoke in measured tones about evidence and procedure. Then Emmy was called to the stand. She walked up alone, small and fierce. The judge looked at her with something like surprise. State your name for the record. Emmeline Grace Whitmore McAllister. Clara caught her breath. They hadn't discussed the name change. Emmy had added it herself. Miss McAllister, you were present on the night of December 12th, 1877. Yes, sir. Can you tell the court what you witnessed? Emmy looked at Crane, looked at the lawyers, looked at the packed courtroom. Then she looked at Jasper. He nodded once. Emmy turned back to the judge. I saw Marshal Crane shoot my father, my real father. Henry Whitmore. He was a deputy sheriff and an honest man, and Marshal Crane killed him because he wouldn't lie about what he knew. Her voice didn't shake, didn't waver. It filled the courtroom like a bell. Tell us exactly what happened. Emmy told them, every detail. The conversation she overheard, the gunshot, her father falling, Crane's threat to her mother. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. The defense attorney stood. Miss McAllister, you were 7 years old at the time. Surely your memory... I remember everything. Emmy's voice hardened. I remember what he said. I remember how my papa looked at me before he died. I remember running to him and his blood on my hands. I remember Crane pointing his gun at my mother and telling her to keep quiet or we'd be next. The attorney stepped back. No further questions. Emmy walked down from the stand, past Crane without looking at him. He was convicted within the hour, guilty of murder, embezzlement, and conspiracy, sentenced to hang. As they led him away, Crane looked at Emmy. You ruined me. A child. A little girl ruined everything. Emmy didn't flinch. No, sir. You ruined yourself. I just told the truth. They walked out of the courthouse into the August sun. Clara held Emmy tight. Jasper carried Sammy. It's over, Clara whispered. It's really over. It's over, Jasper agreed. Emmy looked up at them both. Can we go home now? Home. The word that used to hurt. The word that used to mean grief and silence and empty rooms. Now it meant something else entirely. Yeah, sweetheart. Jasper smiled. Let's go home. They returned to Montana as the leaves began to turn. The ranch had never looked better. The garden was full. The animals were healthy. The house had fresh paint, courtesy of Ezra, and half the town who'd come to help while they were gone. October brought the first frost. Jasper stood on the porch watching the sun rise over the hills. Sergeant lay at his feet, old and content. Clara came out with coffee, stood beside him. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything. Nothing." He took the cup. "How different things are. How different I am." "Is that good?" He looked at her. This woman who'd walked out of a snowstorm and into his heart. Who'd given him a reason to live again. "It's everything good." Emmy burst through the door. Pa Sammy said a word. A real word. "What word?" "He said, Pa." "He looked right at you through the window and said it." Jasper's heart stopped. He went inside. Sammy was in his high chair banging a spoon against the wood. When he saw Jasper, he stopped. "Pa," he said clearly. "Pa, pa, pa." Jasper picked him up, held him close. "Yeah, buddy, I'm right here." Emmy was bouncing on her heels. "I taught him. I've been practicing with him for weeks." Clara laughed. "That's why you've been whispering in his ear every night. I wanted it to be a surprise." Jasper looked at his family, his wife, his daughter, his son, his family. Built from broken pieces, forged in fire, bound by choice and love and stubborn hope. "Pa." Emmy tugged his sleeve. "Yeah, sweetheart." "Are we happy now for real?" Jasper thought about everything they'd been through. The loss, the fear, the fight, the healing. "Yeah, Emmy, we're happy for real. Forever." He looked at Clara. She smiled. "Forever," he said. "And a day." Emmy hugged his leg. Sammy grabbed his collar. Clara wrapped her arms around all of them. And on that Montana ranch, as autumn painted the hills gold and red, Jasper McAllister finally understood what Margaret had meant with her dying breath. Live. He was living. Fully. Completely. With every breath and every heartbeat. Not despite the grief. Through it. Beyond it. Because of it. The two crosses on the hill stood silent in the morning light. But if you listened close, you could almost hear them. Not sorrow anymore. Just peace. Just blessing. Just love enduring across all the distances that death creates. Jasper looked at his family. Smiled. This was his life now. This was his home. These were his people. And ain't no one would ever be left out again.